My playthroughs of Dishonored's base game made it immediately clear that I wanted to spend more time with the series, and the most obvious next step was finishing what content existed in this first title. Dishonored's 2012 release was succeeded by 3 paid DLCs sprinkled in the months that followed, all of which were collected under the Dishonored Definitive Edition a few years later. First on deck was the $5 Dunwall City Trials. The cheapest of the 3 is also the one that lacks new story content. Dunwall City Trials is more of a mission mode, repurposing a lot of the content from the base game. It's fine for what it is based on the small time I spent poking my head into it. I think Dishonored's open gameplay style lends itself well to a more replayable, bite-sized mode like this. But in preparing myself to jump into Dishonored 2, non-story DLCs just aren't what I'm looking for right now. So this video will be exclusively covering DLCs 2 and 3, the Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches. I've consolidated my coverage of these 2 DLCs into a single video for a simple reason. Upon playing these DLCs, it becomes almost immediately clear that they are 2 parts of a greater whole. They tell 2 halves of the same story, your equipment and progress carry over from one to the other, and you play as the same character. And that character is a great place to start, because Arcane made an interesting decision here. You don't play through the DLC as Corvo Attano, the original protagonist. Instead, you play as Daud, one of the bad guys. Base game's Mission 7 is where you either assassinate or spare this character, and even here you get the impression that Daud is different from all the other assassination targets throughout the game. In the web of plotters and schemers involved in the assassination of Empress Jessamine Caldwin, Daud's involvement wasn't that of the schemer, it was that of the tool. Though he was the one to thrust his sword through her stomach, he was just a lowly hitman taking out a hit as he was used to doing. He himself acknowledges his hands have never been clean, with one of the first lines in the game being Daud recognizing that you could float a ship on all the blood he spilled. But his justification to himself is that all of his targets are corrupt and evil politicians. He's killed plenty of nobles, why is this one any different? But it was. The minimal screen time that the Empress had before being assassinated portrayed her as an empathetic and just leader who only wanted what was best for her people. The small pangs of guilt that Daud feels immediately upon slaying her escalate into extreme remorse as the months pass and he sees what the ramifications for his actions are. The kingdom has fallen into ruin, thousands are dying, and he played a part in it. And that's not what he wanted. Daud is greeted by the mystical entity as the outsider to condemn him for his actions, but imparted upon Daud the first clue in a mystery, the name Delilah. And so begins Daud's path towards redemption. What an opening to the story. By using a character who I already had opinions on from the base game and recontextualizing what I knew about him, the developers made me immediately invested into this narrative. The game's strong opening isn't limited to its story, because the gameplay comes right out the gate as robust as ever. You'll immediately notice a few things when you get started. The first I noticed was a higher level of difficulty. Level layout and enemy density more so mirror the harder levels of Dishonored 1 right out the gate. Couple that with Daud being at his earliest level of progression means that I died far more often in my first hour of this DLC than usual. The extra difficulty feels like it comes a bit from Daud's moveset too. Like Corvo, he is a magic-wielding assassin, and while most of their abilities are shared, the small changes make a world of difference. Daud lacks Corvo's arguably strongest ability, the power to take over people's minds and walk around as them. Instead, he gets the ability to summon fellow assassins to attack whatever enemy you're pointing at. The largest change seen between Corvo and Daud's capabilities come in Daud's equipment, most notably the introduction of 2 new non-lethal options, a mine that stuns anyone who comes near, and a smoke grenade. More than just increasing your stealthy options, they both act as effective mid-combat non-lethal options. The smoke grenade especially allows for you to temporarily incapacitate enemies and get behind them for a chokehold. And while 2 new items may not sound like a lot, these effectively double your options in non-lethal playthroughs, and if you watch my review of the base game, you'll know that a lack of effective tools here was one of my biggest problems. Daud also has a slightly different blink than Corvo, with Daud's allowing the complete stoppage of time when you're prepping it. Another one of the notable changes is a series of options that Daud has at his disposal prior to each mission starting. He can call in favors from his underlings for a price to aid him in the mission. These sometimes open up access to different shortcuts or put supply drops in key locations. It's a small touch, but it helps Daud feel more like the leader of an organization than he does a lone wolf like Corvo, and the small wrinkles it adds to the gameplay are definitely welcome. All of these small changes add up to a slightly different lethal playthrough experience and a vastly different non-lethal experience, and these are very, very good things. Each DLC contains 3 missions, totaling up to 6 in comparison to the base game's 9, though it's worth noting that a third of these DLC missions are repurposed levels from the base game. Your original response to that number may be to criticize how small it is, and I definitely think I would have been bummed if I played these on release and had to wait months in between for 3 missions. But playing in 2020 back to back, they felt satisfying in length, especially if you want to do multiple playthroughs. Dishonored isn't about its breadth, it's about its depth, and some of these new levels are really, really deep. My favorite missions among these DLCs actually bookend the experience. The very first mission in the Knife of Dunwall is the Whale Slaughterhouse. You're sent in to find more about Delilah, a ship owned by the slaughterhouse's owner. It's just as grimy and disgusting a level as you would expect, with an actual live whale being harvested and drained of its oil right in front of you. As I've come to expect of Dishonored, you can break into this slaughterhouse in a number of different ways. Maybe you'll steal a time card from one of the employees and punch in at the front door. I ended up finding the sewers and crawling in from underneath. The slaughterhouse has its own unique enemy type of the Butchers, the maniacal workers who will try to grind you to bits with their chainsaw, but also leave explosives exposed on their backs that you can exploit if you find a way to get behind them. The very last mission ending Brigmore Witches is the Manor of the Witches itself, and I love it for all the same reasons I love the slaughterhouse. It has its own unique enemy types that change the way you play, it's large and dense with a bunch of different ways to approach it, and it's tonally spot on and unique. So the Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches bring some more powers to play with, greatly improve non-lethal playthroughs, and introduce some of my favorite new levels. I have to ask myself, are these DLCs actually better than the Dishonored base game? And while I think they're great and they come close, I wouldn't go that far. The biggest thing keeping these DLCs from being as good for me is their story and characters.
I knew I'd pay for this one. Maybe I deserve to. A storm was coming that would shake apart everything I'd built.
The redemption of Daud starts out incredibly strong, and all of the aspects of this story that I loved so much and shared earlier happen within the first 10 to 15 minutes. After that, the narrative really loses focus, and I don't think any of the major beats hit me as hard as the developers intended, and I'll be spoiling the DLC's ending here so I can tell you why I feel that way. The eventual twist that the story leads up to is that Daud ended up taking actions that saved the recently orphaned and soon-to-be Empress Emily Kaldwin, becoming the unrecognized savior of the Empire. And my problem with this is that I don't think this savior of the Empire angle that they try to push feels justified. And that's because Daud's intent was never really saving anything. Daud's guilt as he opens up the game is something that the outsider notices, and without explaining anything, he just gives him the name Delilah. Daud pursues that mystery for the entirety of these DLCs, tracking this woman down and seeing what that means. It isn't until 80% of the way through the final mission that Daud even realizes that this Delilah is attempting to take over the body of Emily. Daud spends the DLCs playing cat and mouse and chasing clues, having no idea where these leads will end up taking him. Your objective when you enter the Brigmore Manor is to neutralize or kill Delilah, and that's an objective you have before you learn she has any involvement with or intention to harm Emily. Emily being saved by Daud can practically be viewed as a coincidence because of this. I can't help but imagine how much more this story would have meant to me if Daud intended to save Emily from the start. After months of unbearable guilt seeing the consequences of his actions, he seeks atonement by doing whatever he can to make right what he's made wrong. He sets out to find if this Emily girl is still alive and do what he can to protect her and put the Kaldwin bloodline back on the throne, instead of just following the cryptic whims and being the errand boy of a supernatural being. Imagine how much more that redemption would actually mean, when his saving of Emily was something he actually wanted to do. And imagine how much more tragic his showdown with Corvo would be, going head to head against a man who has the exact same goals. Delilah herself is barely given any time to manifest as a true villain either, and that's not to say there wasn't time here. The DLCs are short, but a lot of energy is wasted on a few subplots that didn't strike a chord, like the betrayal storyline where Daud gets turned on by his right-hand woman. The betrayer is barely more than a nameless NPC, and it feels like the last-minute turn was thrown in for cheap drama. When she pulled her sword on me and challenged me to a duel for leadership of the assassins, I didn't really care. The Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches are worthy DLCs. Some aspects of their story are underwhelming, but the rest of the package is anything but. The DLCs contain some of the best missions in the game, and the fact that non-lethal playthroughs are more fun here means that playing through these missions multiple times becomes even more enticing. The improvements to the gameplay on display here make me very optimistic as I work towards starting Dishonored 2, and an immense yearning to play the next game is proof that these DLCs did a damn good job.